All right. So here we are live with the first discussion panel of PM72 Summit. Thank you, Brittany and Elizabeth, for joining me to chat about options for project management tools. This is an exciting topic. How do you actually go about choosing and what options are there out there? I think are questions that are on all of our minds. For everyone who's watching, as we go along, do ask questions in the chat somewhere in YouTube, and we'll read at the end. So, hello, both of you.
Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for joining me. We'll jump right in. There are a lot of project management tools out there. I think everyone can admit that. And they're all similar and different in the same time. How would one go about to group these type of tools that are out there?
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to take this one. So there certainly are a lot of project management tools out there. Part of the reason there is that there's a lot of different types of industries and styles of project management. So when you look at the type of tool you need to use, I like to first look at what types of tools work for each industry or style. So there's traditional project management tools, and these tend to target waterfall style project management, typically used in areas like construction or consulting, where you're tracking time and materials, and sometimes you need to bill back to a client. Tools like MS Project have those features built in. So they're focused on enabling invoicing, resource planning, and there's a lot of different things that are very specific to those industries that are required in their tools. When I worked at Wayfair, I needed to plan out data center builds and like phone system cutovers, and those types of things really, really worked in MS Project. Now, the type of project management I do today is much more agile project management, and this requires shorter planning and review cycles to allow you to be more nimble when working. And these types of things tend to work better with like card-based tools. So there are things like Trello or Asana where they're really meant for working in the tool and rapid changes to what you're working on. Yeah, go ahead. To take this a little bit further, I think what you can really do is you can break them down into the tools of saying you have ticket-based tools, and those are Trello, Monday.com, Asana, Jira, ClickUp. Then you have like Gantt chart-based tools like MS Project and Project Libre. Then you have database tools like Airtable, Smartsheets. And then you can also have ones that are more information-based where you can plan a project in anything. So I think you can use things like G Suite, Google Docs, Google Sheets, or Notion. And so if you look at those, both the style of project management you're doing and the tools you have, you can really pinpoint which one works best for your use case.
I mean, I think that's a really good way to structure it. But I'm curious, how do you know which type of tool you need in your team?
Yeah, it's a good question. It goes back to some questions you need to ask yourself. Are you going to be doing Agile work? If so, the ticket-based and card-based tools are going to work best because Agile really works with cards, the Post-it notes. If you're going to be doing a single specific project, start to end, versus trying to do workflow and planning for a department or team, they'll also change what you want to use. Tools like Asana are really great for end-to-end project planning, same with Microsoft Project. And then you also need to look at what type of information you need to track. If you're billing a client or tracking resources, you really need to use a tool that has the ability to do invoicing. MS Project is the classic one. Project Libre is the open source version, and ClickUp is one of the newer versions that has some of that functionality. If you need to track dependencies and milestones, you need to make sure you have that functionality too. And if you're working on continuous projects, you need to make sure that you're using one that will allow you to continue to move tickets through in a Kanban style. That'll be card-based.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is you need to make sure that you scope with your team the type of requirements that you have for the tool, and don't just go out and test absolutely every single hype tool that you see. You really need to understand what the need
Please
is.
don't.
Yes, you absolutely need to understand what things your team and stakeholders need you to be tracking.
And how do you balance a product with, say, robust features and scalability, but also is easy to get started with? That's one of the big challenges.
Yes.
I think at this stage we have like tools that are really easy to get started with and tools that are robust. How can you balance that?
Yeah, and I don't think they are mutually exclusive things. I think sometimes they can be, and I think it can be really intimidating to say, okay, I want something that I can do a lot with, but I don't want something that's going to immediately overwhelm everybody on my team who's using it. So I think generally a good way to go about that is sticking with a product that has a free plan to sort of let you test out the waters and gives you options to increase as you need more. So that's kind of a good path to go on. You want something that's simple to start with, but you can add on layers later that will let you, get more features or give you more power within it. So um, everybody knows I'm a huge Trello fan. I promised to come to this talk and not just shout Trello every 15 seconds. But I will say, I think Trello actually is a good example of this because you start out with literally just a digital whiteboard with sticky notes and you drag and drop these cards around, and there's no crazy onboarding tutorial. There's not 1,000 buttons you have to navigate around. But then if you're like, oh, wait, but actually I want to be able to do this with it, well, you can add a power up or you can check out some of the advanced features that do let you do that. So a ClickUp, I'm happy to say ClickUp. I also thought it was kind of cool that you could start your experience with, do you want something simple with less features or something advanced with more features? And then you can kind of add on as you go. So doing something like that's a good to not overwhelm yourself and to ease yourself into something. And it's easy enough to get started with, but has all of the features you need to scale down the road.
That makes a lot of sense. Right. Before I jump into more questions, because I have a billion of them, I'm interested in your thoughts in this. Chat, I know there's around 60 of you lingering and watching this talk. This is live, right? So we're live, we're discussing. If you have any questions about how to choose project management tools for your team, feel free to ask in the chat there, and we'll address it at the end. Just wanted to put that out again there. Right, we talked about, finding the right tool for your tool. For the right tool for your team. But related to your team, who are the groups of people you need to keep in mind as you're picking up a tool? Is it generic for your team or are specific roles?
Yeah, of course. Whenever looking at which tool I'll use for a project or selecting one for a team, I like to consider anyone who will need to be involved in the project, and that's really anyone. It's the ICs doing work. Can they use this tool? Does it do what they need them to do? The PM, so the project managers involved, will this help make their lives easier? Program managers or product managers, does this help them with planning out in the future? And then I think one of the groups that is sometimes overlooked is the stakeholders. Is it going to be easy to report back up to your stakeholders what the status is? No one wants to spend endless hours doing status update decks. So will this remove that burden?
Yeah, very true. And what are the criteria that are most important for each of these groups? And let's say we start with stakeholders.
Yeah. So I think stakeholders, as Liz mentioned, it's extremely important to include this group because otherwise you will spend a lot of time copying and pasting things from one tool into an email or a Google Doc to be pushed out to people. So the thing they need to be able to just quickly what's going on, what's the impact and the progress on it. That's all they want. They don't want fancy bells and whistles. They literally just want to know, is this going to happen on time? Is this project moving along? And are there roadblocks that you need us to remove for you? So features to consider here are automated reporting and burn down charts. So you can quickly just give them one visual that's going to show them what's on track and where they need to go with that.
Yeah, I feel I've been in both camps, as a PM and as a team lead, creating these reports as well as a stakeholder. And I feel like automating and being able to put those reports really quickly together. It's a benefit that I've taken advantage when I was preparing reports for stakeholders, and I really enjoy seeing my team optimize that process of reporting and communication when it comes to project insight. So, yeah, I completely agree. Right? Okay.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
what are the criteria that are most important for project managers in the other side?
Yeah, so the project managers, they want to be able to understand the estimated effort involved in a task and the expected benefit so that they can appropriately plan a sprint and prioritize the tasks. It's also helpful for them to be able to see the relevant stakeholders so they know who they need to keep in the loop, but they're going to be all about like how do we organize, prioritize this without burdening the team, but also moving forward to make sure, stakeholders are seeing progress on the things they need to see. So they need something that's going to let them estimate that amount of time and effort involved in a project, and also various levels of priority or how many people have requested this or things like that.
And then lastly, what are the criteria that are most important for individual contributors in the team?
Yeah.
So
for
yeah,
this
so
one- oh, go ahead.
yeah, no, go for it, Liz. I know we both had some pieces we wanted to kind of say for this. Yeah, go for it, Liz.
Yeah, no, sorry. The thing I found to be most important is that the tool has to be easy to work with and help them do their job. No one wants to be going in and taking another step to have to update another tool with the same information they've already updated somewhere else. And I found if you can't make the tool make their life easier, which at one company I was at, we couldn't make the tool easier for them. We did get success in adoption and making sure people used it by tying it back to their goals of reporting. So if you remove that piece we're talking about with reporting, if you can have it automatically update and report back to stakeholders and their team leads how much work is done, that really helps. And one thing we did was we actually tied it into headcount planning. So if we saw the type amount of work coming in and the estimates, we were then able to do resource planning for the department based on the project management tool we were using. And that made it so that we always had accurate data in there because everybody knew that's what would help them get the next headcount. And if they put in any projects that weren't getting done into this tool, they would be able to get the headcount in the future to make that project happen. And another place I was at, we got higher adoption for the tool by making sure all information that anyone need to do was always in that place, always within the tool. And that really made people's lives easier. So they would go in and make sure they always had that up to date. So those are the two aspects that I found were most important for ICs, was either making their job easier, and if that's not possible, use it to make reporting easier for them.
Yeah, and just to like echo onto that, I completely agree with it needs to not be another thing that I have to do. Like it needs to be something that's so natural, a part of my workflow, but also makes it easy for me to see, okay, what am I working on today? Like that's the big thing that I want. I want to be able to get into a tool and see, here's what I actually need to focus on today. Here's where I'm going with that. And if a project management tool can do that for me, that's what I want. I don't want to have to click through 1,000 different views. I just want to see, Brittany, here's what you need to do.
Okay, right. So making your life easier, that's the main theme that I'm hearing over here. I'm curious because I think one of the challenges as a productivity tool maker and also as a consumer and an advocate like yourself, Brittany, with Trello, I'm an advocate of a bunch of tools. I'm curious, what do you see? What makes a project management tool sticky so that people keep using it and don't feel like it's just another tool in their workflow that has been jammed in their life by their manager or their PMO or so on?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the big pieces are it needs to integrate with tools that I'm already using. So I don't want to have to take another step to go do something in GitHub that, if I can sync it all, that's going to help me out a lot. And then the other piece is if things are automated in it. And if it feels like I'm having to really do a bunch of things and click and drag things around, then that's going to feel like more work. If it's more seamless and automated, then that's what's going to make me more likely to stick with it because I'm able to give it one piece of input and then it's able to do all the necessary things with it, saving me time. That's what I'm looking for in it. And I know, Liz, I know you have some thoughts on this as well.
I do. Access is the biggest piece for me. It doesn't matter how great the tool is, but if people on your team that you collaborate with don't have access to the tool, it becomes useless. I've previously set up tools like Asana, which I now use today, and it's great because everyone has access. But I used a previous job, and we had only a specific number of licenses available, and so that meant that only people who had access to the tool could keep it up to date. and it quickly got abandoned because you need to make sure that everyone you're collaborating with on any team or different companies can access your tool and work with you.
Yeah, and I think good tools also offer a bunch of permission levels and access levels depending on needs and the stakeholder type. And yeah, so that I completely agree. I think that's a bigger factor for me than even integrations. Although integration is critical as all, Brittany, don't get me wrong. Right, so how do pricing plans compare across the main players in the space? What the lowest cost, highest cost, and how to tell which one you need?
I can take this one if you want, Brittany.
Yeah, go for
Honestly,
it.
when we looked across, when we looked across all of them, they're all pretty similarly priced, at least for the entry level plans. It's typically based on seat or user, so that means per person, and this goes back to the access piece as talked about before. Make sure that when you're starting out with a project management, this is the one thing I would say, make sure when you're starting out with a project management tool that you do account for how many people you're going to need to use it. So because the price will go up by seat or by user, it means that as your team or the people involved grow, your cost is going to go up. So whenever you're selecting one, that's the piece I would really consider is, will you be able to afford this when you scale? And how will you make that work? Because like I said, everyone needs to have access to it in some way. I'd say a couple of the ones are a bit more pricey. So MS Project, that is more pricey. When I used a company, we were only able to have 5 licenses because of the cost. And so that meant only the PMO team that I ran could have access to it. So we would spend a lot of our time updating it. Project Libre, we actually downloaded at one point in time because it's open source and free. And we use that as an option as well to try and fix some of the access issues we were having. So make sure that whatever you're looking at purchasing, you have the ability, when you do scale it up, you have the ability to give everyone access, and you account for that in your pricing plan.
Got it. That's a religious advice over there. And which tools offer the best integration options? This is going to be controversial. I'm sure people in the chat are going to have their opinion as well. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I'm waiting for people to jump in and say, no, you've got it all wrong. My tool is the best one. And maybe it is. If it integrates with all your tools, then that is what makes it the best one. So this isn't this is the tool for you kind of thing, so much as we actually looked up and counted on the different tools and their integrations page, and like manually counted various pieces, or like, look for them to give a specific number. And funnily enough, by my count, Jira was the winner here with 3,000 plus integrations. Like not counting what you can do or not with Zapier necessarily in it. But yeah, Jira was the winner with 3,000 plus. ClickUp came in next with 1,000 plus, and then Asana at 278, and Trello at 204. Yeah, Airtable was the smallest one at 32, but they did specify, you can connect with over 1,000 with Zapier. And that's the thing, is most of these can also integrate with Zapier. And in some cases, I've actually found the integrations with Zapier are stronger than the native integrations with the tools. So like, take all of that with a grain of salt. If you're like, oh, you didn't list my tool there. Well, if it connects to Zapier and connects to other things, then it's probably going to do the job for you. But that's just something that's good to know, because like we mentioned, the biggest roadblock to using these tools is if you're having to move data from one tool to update it in this tool. And that's just not sustainable, because you're going to burn out. You're going to get tired of doing that. So the integrations are super important. And so, yeah, Jira is the winner in what I saw. And we actually have a spreadsheet. I'm going to share this in the chat in a minute, but Liz and I went through all of these different tools we talked through and ranked them on like different sort of criteria. So you've got like a little matrix of like, all right, here's how many integrations Trello has. Does it work on Zapier? Does it work on Workato? Like, what's the pricing start at? And what is it kind of known for? So, things like integrations is a section on there, and I'm going to link to that. But just so you know, that's something that was really important as we were looking at. And yeah, there's lots of things you can do with it. So yeah, I know Liz, you've been working with all sorts of integrations and making all sorts of tools talk to each other.
Yes, and I would say before you actually go to purchase any of these, make sure to test out the integration before you go to purchase. Make that part of your POC that you're doing. One thing that I ran into previously is I was setting up, this was a long time ago, so it's probably changed since then, but I was setting up Sauna to be integrated with GitHub. And the issue I ran into is even though the integration worked, what it did is it stripped the information as to who posted each comment. And that meant that we couldn't use it because it looked like a bot. We created a bot that would have these updates come through. It looked like a bot had posted the update, and it made it a lot more difficult to get things done. So at that point in time, we ended up scrapping Asana and sticking with GitHub issues to continue our project management work. And like I said, today I do use Asana, and they've improved a lot of things, but things like the integrations, it really matters if it does fit what you need for your company.
That is a super valid point to mention there. Like, yes, just because it says it integrates doesn't mean it's what you're expecting in the box with integration. So definitely check that out, because integrate could mean a lot of different things. So yeah, that's a really good call out, Liz.
I was laughing because the number of tools that I see advertising, they have integrations with 1,000 apps, and they're basically using a Zapier linkage, which is, okay, a bit cheating, but okay, it works. I'm not surprised to hear Jira is on top when it comes to integrations. Being part of the ecosystem and building Jira apps, I think I've kind of learned the vast wealth of integrations that are available there. I think I'm going to be your number one fan when it comes to that spreadsheet. We use a portfolio of project management tools. I've always been of the opinion of find the tools that work for the job, for the team, for the scenario. So we don't only use one tool, we use multiple tools. It depends on the specific scenario. Or one team might be using one tool and so on. We don't try to just jam one specific tool to absolutely everyone, every department and so on. Even the same team can use multiple tools depending on the type of projects. Like, for example, organizing PM72 was done in a completely different tool than we do our other marketing activities and so on. Hashtag Boostly. So, right. Thank you so much for answering all of these questions. I think I've kind of satisfied my interest in how you go about choosing tools. We'll look at the chat and see if there's anything there. People ask some questions. So Melissa says, in your experience, what are some of the best tools to use if you are using Agile methodology and your client is using Waterfall methodology?
I have no experience with Waterfall, thankfully. Yeah, go for it, Liz. I think you have experience with both.
Yeah,
I was going to say, I only have experience with Agile.
Yeah. When I was at Wayfair, I had to plan both in Agile and in Waterfall. So I'd say some of the tools that probably work the best are going to be any tools that are going to have multiple views. So tools like Asana, Trello, well, not Trello, I guess Asana and Airtable are probably the two that would come to mind for me, because you can have dependencies within them, and you can switch from a Gantt chart view or a calendar view to a card-based view. You can also probably have different project boards in something like Asana, where you can easily have them be on both, where you can have one on a sprint project board and one on a waterfall style project board. So I'd say any of the ones that easily switch between different viewpoints that are more of a database style would work.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So let's see. Christian said, I assume get a better client is an answer you're looking for. Yeah, okay, so that's good. Let's see. Christian also said, we're just reading here. On a more serious note, probably most tools may do that for you. However, you'll probably need some creativity to deal with that, which is...
Yeah, and that's a good point. I do think what you do need to look for is confirming that there's an ability to show dependencies in which of the tool you're pulling. and the ability to switch between like a Gantt view and a ticket or card-based view. If you have the ability to do those types of things in the tool, you'll be able to easily swap between the two.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Let's see what we have here. Nikki says, great discussion panel. Thank you so much, Liz and Brittany.
Thanks for having us. This
questions?
is seriously fun. I enjoy nerding out about stuff like this.
Yeah, so put your questions in the chat, okay? We still have some time left. We have Bjorn with a question. What is your recommendation for a user who is managing projects in Excel so far? What is the good start to Trello, for example? So let's split this into two questions. I think I like the first part quite a lot. If you're coming from Excel, what would you recommend someone getting into a proper project management tool?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think Liz and I probably both have some similar but also different on it. I'm obviously naturally biased to start thinking of Trello, of course, but my first thought is whatever you have a row for your spreadsheet, that's probably going to be I call it a unit. And whatever tool you're using, whether it's Trello or ClickUp or Monday, that's going to be your like card sort of item. Your list will likely be whatever your columns are in Excel. So again, it kind of depends how you have it organized, but that's what you can expect to kind of mimic in a tool like Trello, for instance, where let's say a spreadsheet and you have a column or a list for, well, I guess it's column in a spreadsheet, but to do, then doing, then done. Well, that can be your list names, and the items that you're moving and copying and pasting around, you can make each of those a card and move it from place to place. Or if maybe you have a list of you're organizing like by different statuses or whatever those are, you might have each row is a specific item. So it could be like a project is to make a video, and then whatever the columns are, if they're not like a workflow it goes through, but more like, let's say, details about a project, then maybe those are custom fields that you add. So for instance, if you're keeping track of like, you know, a start and due date, well, luckily most of these tools actually have fields for those things, or who owns this, like whatever you're putting in those columns are probably already fields that you can use in one of those tools. So I recommend starting with like, is your workflow in Excel, is it based on sort of that list layout of like go through stages, or are you using the columns as details about a project, and then finding the tool you want and just kind of mimicking that way. You kind of draw the dots between those two. And other than that, I would say don't get too fancy right away. But yeah, what do you think? Would you take a similar approach?
I'd say the tool I would suggest moving into would be Airtable. I feel like Airtable is just like Excel. It just has colors.
But you're right.
That's true.
It is. It's the easiest one to transition to. It's basically Excel, but it allows you to. It's like Excel with macros. You know, it really just makes it easier to visualize and move between different views. That's just going to be the fastest one.
Yeah, agree. All right, so let's see if we have anything else here. So I think we have a fan in the room. Cody said,
"Oh, Cody! Hi, Cody! Oh my gosh!
Of the best there is. Use all her stuff."
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely.
Thanks, Cody.
Really encourage you to check the spreadsheet that Brittany will share. Okay, let's check one more thing before we leave. So we use Inspire Planner because it integrates with Salesforce. Are there others that work well that also integrate with Salesforce? That's actually a very good point. You know, sales and project management very often go hand in hand. So do you have any advice on how to make these two worlds play well together?
It's a good question. I can say not Trello, actually, which is probably one of the few times you'll hear me say that. Admittedly, I haven't played around with it as much. So somebody on here might actually be more experienced than me and know more about it. But I have had limited success with like syncing, at least with Trello's native power up. I know there's a little bit more more you can do with Zapier and Trello. But I honestly don't know one that's particularly good with Salesforce, probably because of the nature of the beast that Salesforce is. Do you know of any, Liz?
I have never had any tool integrate with Salesforce I'm using for this. So I have not found a good one. I'm sure there are ones that work well with it, but none that I've come across.
Yeah,
Well,
that's actually like a really interesting question. I would definitely say check out Zapier though, because like any of these tools we've mentioned, find maybe the one that works best for your sort of workflow, and then look at your options that you have for triggers and actions in Zapier. Because I know Salesforce comes through there, and like there's lots of things for like new record added or new contact updated or things like that. So it seems like it's possible to build what you want kind of with any of these tools. You just may not be able to rely on any of the native integrations like Trello's power up for it, or even ClickUp's integration or whatever. You may need some to build something with Zapier.
yeah, true. Well, the tool mentioned here was potentially was one of them, the Inspire Planner. Christian also says that Jira works well when using apps. I suppose he meant Salesforce. Jira works well with Salesforce when using.
Jira probably also works well with Jira. It seems like that's probably also a true statement.
Yeah, probably integrates proper. It's no wonder it's the highest integrations count. So Christian says we used Salesforce and Jira in the past. Also used some functions in Salesforce to trigger page creation in Confluence with some scripting. Yeah, so I think if you dig deep enough, you'll find really good solutions. I think there's a lot and I'm thinking apps related, but also there's so many articles and posts nowadays out there on how to integrate tools with automation tools and so on. Well, I think this was a great, insightful discussion, and I feel I learned a lot personally. I hope everyone out there watching did too. But Brittany, Elizabeth, do you want to add anything as a closure?
Just thanks for having us. This was awesome. And if you want to learn more about Trello, I talk about it all the time, and just general productivity sort of things in general. So I'm also going to be in the after parties. Some of them I'm still trying to figure out with like jet lag and time zones, which one I'm officially going to. But I'll be there, and you can reach out to me and get my contact info. But yeah, I love the stuff. You can also find me on Twitter, Britt Joiner.
Awesome. I also want to say thank you for having us. And Britt has been a wonderful help when it comes to Trello and all the tips. I'll also be joining, I believe, the European after party tomorrow. Is that tomorrow?
Yep.
So if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them too.
Yeah, and well, for sure, check the source shared, everyone. Brittany will get into the chat now and share that. I want to thank you both.
Yeah, I posted it earlier, but I'll post it again.
To be with us on. Okay, brilliant. I'll thank you both for taking the time being with us on PM72 Summit today and for the valuable information shared here. Signing off now. Have a great rest of PM72, everyone. Great talks are coming, and in 2 hours and a half, we have our American after party happening. So stay tuned. We'll go live for that. Thank you.